Good morning. I want to welcome you to the Women in Fund Finance panel. My name is Dee Dee Scalar, and I'm speaking to you from New York, and it is an honor to be the co-global chair of Women in Fund Finance. I am joined today by Nick Mitra, my co-chair, and our US, Europe, and Asia committee heads who will introduce themselves. We have chosen 3 topics to discuss with you. I personally know some of you attending for over 16 years. As our community continues to grow, so do our partnerships. We have all learned that our competitors are often our partners. Starting in 2017, today, Women in Fund Finance is over 2,500 members globally, including some men. Our membership includes professionals across banks, law firms, alternatives, investors, and other industry members. Our mission remains the same: to connect, learn, advance, and support careers within our network. Banks and law firms contribute to our funding, and I want to take this opportunity to thank all 43 of our 2020 sponsors. And please support Women in Fund Finance when we start calling soon for 2021. During 2020, we had 19 events, 3 in person, before quickly pivoting to online events. As a brief, we continued our Wit and Wisdom gatherings, combining a capped number of rising stars and 4 to 5 senior women speaking frankly about topics and abiding by Chatham rules. We also had business sector events, including discussing real estate, energy, secondaries, and corporate debt. We had career events such as reclaiming your digital identity, keeping pace with change, career progression in the time of COVID, and personal presentation. We had 2 authors, Shelley Archambault, who wrote Unapologetically Ambitious, and Lauren Herring, who wrote This Side Up, share their career path and advice. In addition to sponsors, some of our guest speakers have included Advancing Women's Careers, Audex, Barings, Common Fund, State Street Global Advisors, New Mountain, Varde, The Mark, NAREM, Texas Retirement Systems, ACRE, Oak Tree, Partners Group, Impact, FTI, Park Hill, Goldman Sachs, Landmark, NGP, Tudor Pickering, Rebellion Energy, Vista, Onyx, and NXT. We have already initiated 2021 programming about ESG topics, a fireside chat with Kara Golden, who founded Hint Water, about how she raised her money and wrote the book Undaunting, and one of our members, initially from Carlisle, now Peloton's treasurer. Before we begin, I would like to thank Sequence, Cynthia, Megan, Liz, and now Michelle Bolingbroke with FWA to adding to our initiatives. Now I would like to introduce, for those of you that don't know him, my co-chair, Nick Mitra.
Thank you, Dee Dee. Such a pleasure being here. Before we see a brief video going through the incredible energy we have in WFF around the world, I'd like to have my other board members from around the world introduce themselves. We're starting with Mary.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mary Touchstone. I'm a partner at Simpson Thacher in New York and head of the firm's Fund Finance Group. I'm also a member of the board of the Fund Finance Association and Women in Fund Finance.
Hi, I'm Ann Richardson Knox. I am a partner at Mayer Brown and I head up our Global Fund Finance Group. I'm also one of the co-chairs of the US and one of the co-founders of Women in Fund Finance.
Thanks, Ann. Katie, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Kate Downey. I partner at Fried Frank in London. I head up the asset management practice of Fried Frank in London, and I'm one of the co-chairs of Women in Fund Finance in London.
Hi, I'm Emma Russell. I'm a partner at Haynes & Bunn in London. I head up the finance group there. I'm also co-chair of the Women in Fund Finance Europe, and I also help out with the FFA European Conference.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm a partner at Morant, based in Hong Kong. I am co-chair of Women in Fund Finance in Asia, and also on the exec committee for organizing the Fund Finance Conference in Asia.
And lastly, hello everyone, my name is Fiona Cumming. I'm a partner at Alan Overy here in Hong Kong, and I am a co-chair with Danielle of the Women in Fund Finance Committee in Asia.
Great, thanks Fiona. And we're now going to go to a brief video that'll go through a brief sample of the 2,500 women all over the world who work tirelessly on the WFF events. It's incredible the amount of passion and energy that's generated, and we want to showcase a few of them here.
Hi, I'm Alem in London and I'm a WFF member.
This is Amira Hajili, a Women in Fund Finance member from Natixis Paris.
Hi, my name is Ana Roba Martinez and I'm a Women in Fund Finance member with Vardy Partners here in London.
Hi, I'm Annalise Wisdom, a Women in Fund Finance member with Appleby in Grand Cayman.
Good morning. This is
Catherine Carney-Richmond. I'm a member
of Women in Fund Finance with Cummings and Lockwood in Naples, Florida.
This is Deborah Monteperto. I'm a Woman in Fund Finance member with Morgan Stanley in New York and Palm Beach.
This is Emma Wallace. I'm a Women in Fund Finance member with Silicon Valley Bank in Boston.
Hey everyone, or should I say howdy, WFF member Erin England coming to you from Dallas, Texas. I'm a partner at Catton Mution Rosenman, and Catton is a proud sponsor of the Women in Fund Finance.
Hi, I'm Fantine in London and a member of the Women in Fund Finance.
Hello, my name is Phi Ding, based in Singapore. I run the fund finance business for Asia Pacific at ING Bank, and I'm a Woman in Fund Finance member.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Levitt. I'm a member of Women in Fund Finance. I'm a partner at Simpson Thacher in our Los Angeles office.
This is Kristen Castellanos. I am a Women in Fund Finance member from MUFG New York.
Good morning. This is Laura Hope. I am a member of Women in Fund Finance with DBS Bank in New York City.
Hi everyone, my name is Makiko Harnari. I head the banking and credit practice in Asia for Simpson Thacher, and I am a WFF member.
Hi everyone, this is Melissa Lim. I am a Women in Fund Finance member with Walkers in the Cayman Islands.
Hi, I'm Michelle Simons. I'm a Women in Fund Finance member from Wells Fargo in New York.
My name is Michelle Friedman, and I'm a Women in Fund Finance member with Advancing Women's Careers in New York.
Hi, my name is Saima Shaheen. I'm a member of the Women in Fund Finance, working for New Mountain Capital in New York City.
Good morning, this is Vicky Du. I'm the Global Head of Fund Finance at Standard Chartered. I'm a woman in fund finance.
Hi, my name is Victoria Erickson and I'm a member of Women in Fund Finance at Allen & Overy in Sydney.
So Didi, let's now go to the first question of the panel.
Great. We've been together on this impactful adventure for 3 years. So I'd like to ask you, since we started before the Me Too hashtag became so visible, how do you characterize the last 3 years of career progress for women? Let's begin with Mary.
Well, as to career progress for women, I think in recent years, there's more awareness of the opportunities for women, as well as the challenges that women face in the workplace. With those challenges, it's important for a woman to have both mentors and sponsors. Mentors to help them guide them in their career, and also sponsors to help push for that woman when she's not in the room. Over the course of the last few years, Women in Fund Finance, with the help of our many sponsors, have hosted a variety of events, all designed to connect our constituents and provide helpful advice and guidance in career progression. Included in these programs are some of the things that Didi mentioned, things like large group panel discussions, smaller group breakfast meetings, focusing on topics such as building your network, taking control of your digital identity, and career progression in the time of COVID. We also have an upcoming program on honing your personal presentation skills. We've made a lot of strides over the last several years, but there's still work to be done. To that end, I believe that organizations such as Women in Fund Finance play an important role where men and women come together to help women navigate their careers and achieve their objectives.
And have we become a change agent? Tell us your views.
So I think in many ways we have, both the industry has grown and we have grown with it. So it's kind of an exciting time for us because we're now much more visible in the industry than I think we used to be. I think there were far fewer women that were in fund finance than there are now. And it's an exciting career path that has opened up for many of the more junior women. Again, our industry has also grown, so we've been the beneficiaries of that, and we've also been able to create better connections amongst ourselves through both the FFA and the Women in Fund Finance, and that has really been wonderful and rewarding. I think we've all met people at various stages in their career, and we've all learned from each other as well through many of the more informal opportunities that we've had in connection with our events. I think that's what I love so much, the ability to get to know the people that you are seeing peripherally or names on an email. You're really getting to meet them and learn from them. So I think that camaraderie has been wonderful. And I think in maintaining that is both important and a little bit difficult in these challenging times. Certainly COVID has changed things for both the better and the worse, but I think in many ways we have to learn from those challenges. And I think, Women in Fund Finance has done a wonderful job of trying to connect us during these times and try to keep the momentum going. So I'm very excited with respect to the future for both our organization, but also for the opportunities that have arisen through the fact that we are going virtual. I think that makes things much easier for those that are trying to balance work and family life. And I think that it creates possibilities for us where we saw mainly challenges before. So in any event, I think if we can stay visible and connected, we will all be better together.
Sounds great. I'd like to go to Europe. So Emma, do we have more clarity or complexity right now as the 3 years have gone by?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what Mary and Anne have said. I think we have made great strides in the last 3 years. There's definitely more of a conversation around the issue now. And most importantly, I think there's a conversation that involves men and women. When we set up Women in Fund Finance, I think one of the things that was very important to us, primarily on stage, was that we involve men. Otherwise, we're just women in a room having a conversation. And I think that's been really important. I don't think for a second there isn't still some bias or some issues that we need to overcome. But I think it's important to keep having the conversation, and there are some people that probably don't want to hear it. But what I think we've done really well as an organization is really, we've kind of helped ourselves in a number of different ways. And I think what's good about the WFF is that we're multifaceted. We want to be talking about what's going on in the market, but we also want to be empowering women in their careers and supporting them in that respect. So we don't just want to be, we want to be women talking about what's going on and women doing business in our market, which I think is what we've aimed to achieve. So to that end, in the last 3 years, I think what's really nice is that we've created this network between ourselves that is super supportive. And, I think one thing that we've been concerned about before is that there's networks going on doing business that maybe we're not a part of, and actually creating our own network and, supporting each other, I think it's been a really good move forward. I think we have a long way to go, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I would echo that. And I think I was sort of, when we were planning for this, I was reflecting a bit on the conversations and the events we were having when we started, and the conversations and the events that we have now. And I think what's noticeable is how much broader the discussion has become and how many different areas we're now reaching into. We started off having a conversation about how do we connect women in our industry and how do we build the brand of women in our industry. If you think what we're doing now and the things we've been talking about, and Didi, you summarized some of the events, I think the reach that we have and the number of different ways in which this impacts in our lives has been extraordinary. I feel quite encouraged, I think, by the conversation and the quality of the conversation, how it's developed over the last few years. And I think, we're now reaching into areas that frankly impact on everybody, not just on women, but we're able to do that specifically for women and with a particular focus on women in our industry, which is an amazing thing. And I do think one of the more subtle things that Women in Fund Finance has done is to remind all of us that there are loads and loads of other women in fund finance, and that actually historically maybe we didn't all know that we were all there, and now we do. And actually that's partly, as Emma was saying, I think one of the most important things here is having that network and knowing that there are 2,500 women in fund finance and that we can all talk to each other. That's quite a powerful tool. So I think overall the conversation over the last 3 years has become really exciting and much broader than it maybe we ever thought it would.
Let's hear from our members, our heads in Asia now. Fiona, let's hear your experience.
Thank you. And maybe I'll just take a little bit of a step back and sort of give a little bit of a context to where we're coming from Asia. I think as you know, as everyone will appreciate, Asia is obviously a continent of very diverse countries, each with their own cultural, religious, economic challenges. And those are all challenges that sort of impact on women's career progression generally. And taking that, sort of looking very broadly, and this is very broad and obviously very much as sort of generalizations, but generally, we in Asia have quite good representation at a senior level of women, and that's across most of the countries, certainly in which we operate. The reasons for this include, we've amongst other things, the fact that there is a lot of domestic help that's available. You've got shorter commute. That kind of thing really sort of facilitate the broader opportunities for women. However, that is really limited to sort of the economically privileged people within the Asian market, and still within a number of the emerging and less wealthy countries, and within communities that are less wealthy within the Asian countries, there is still a huge number of challenges for women in the workplace, and generally with regards to access to education, to health education, and things like that, that really are needed to facilitate real change. We're also in many of our countries across the region, there's really strong cultural influences, and their importance of family and the pressure on women to, even those with successful careers, to lead and in terms of taking care of children, taking care of relatives, being the homemakers, obviously has an impact on the ability of women then to progress in careers. Because of the issues that I've sort of touched on, and really the fact that gender is so entwined in cultural and religious expectations and traditions, as well as the perception that generally there are women in the workplace in Asia. I think my perception very much is that the conversation around gender and gender equality has been a lot slower in Asia than it has been in Europe and the US, and a lot slower sort of to take off. And that's particularly the case in the mainstream corporate and financial sectors in which we obviously do business. However, this is really changing, and in Hong Kong, for example, we've got really good examples of where there are tangible differences within that corporate world, and this is in a relatively in recent history. So, good examples can be, for example, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. The listing rules since 2019 only have required listed companies to have a diversity policy. That's a very recent change, but shows the direction in which we're going. We've got representative factions of the 30% Club in Hong Kong. NGOs like the Women's Foundation are really pulling corporates, financial services, people together to support women throughout our society, from grassroots projects through schools, through mentoring, and through programs like Male Allies programs, which I think, as we've touched on, and I think as we've mentioned, that the importance of drawing men into the conversation about gender equality and changing the face of the workplace, really, we see that as being really important. And this is again a relatively recent change in Asia. But the great thing is that there are these changes that are being made. Taking with that context, looking at our industry specifically, I think one of the differences that Danielle and I would note about women in fund finance in Asia is really it is the main industry body for networking. Fund finance for us in Asia is a relatively young product compared to the very mature markets of Europe and the US. And women in fund finance has been a real catalyst for growing the network amongst men and women. And actually what we see that as being is really empowering for our female members, because this is leadership of this industry in this part of the world, and it's coming from women. So I think for us, the Women in Fund Finance as an industry body has really had a real powerful impact on bringing together everybody in the region and showing the leadership is the leadership of women.
Thank you. Do you want to address our second topic?
Sure. Thank you, Didi. So a number of you touched upon networking as being very important. The next topic related to that, just as important, is advice, mentoring. How do you develop mentors? How do you move beyond being a subject matter expert? How do you go beyond your comfort zone and move into new areas? And what advice do you give as senior women and incredibly successful ones to the more junior members who are now up and coming? Let's start with Kate in Europe.
Thanks, Nick. I guess the first piece of advice I tend to give is, and it took me a while to learn this, is don't ask for permission. One of the hardest things to learn when you're moving from being in a mid-level to a more senior role is that you don't need to wait for somebody to tell you that your idea is a good one. You don't need to wait until you have whatever the right level of experience is that you've convinced yourself that you need to have in order to be able to run with something. You should just run with it. And people will tell you pretty fast if they don't want you to do that. But if you wait to get permission, then you never get anywhere. And I think women are, this can apply to anybody, but women are particularly adept at holding themselves back because they feel that they don't have the confidence and the skill set that they should at a particular point in their career. And so sort of getting into the habit of saying, no, I do think that I know enough to do this, and even if I don't, I'm going to do it anyway, and it'll probably be fine, is a really important thing to learn. And part of that kind of links to your point on mentoring and support, which is find the people around you who can help you to have that confidence and take that journey. And it may not be, it can be, and I think personally should be, men as well as women, in terms of finding people who will be able to say to you, yeah, everything you just said to me and everything you just explained sounds brilliant, now go do it. And give you that sort of confidence to step up to the next level. So I think that's a key part of making a transition to a more senior role, is just being prepared to take some risks and to back yourself and not wait for somebody else to tell you that your idea is perfect and fits into the business shape that they had in mind. The other thing I think, which is maybe a slightly more of a generational thing, is, be aware that profile matters. And, certainly from my perspective, not being particularly au fait with the delights of social media, one of the things that's been really exciting about what WFF has been doing is making people think about, well, how do I improve my profile? How do I get seen? And in this current environment we're operating in, it's ever more important. But I think it's never too early to start networking. And I think the younger generation probably understand that better, frankly. But I think it's a really key part of building your profile, building your reputation, and also, frankly, learning from all the people that you meet as a result of that. Every conversation you have will be useful. and understanding that if you make the time to do that, then you accumulate an enormous amount of expertise and kind of market knowledge almost by accident, just by listening to what other people are telling you.
Thanks, Kate. No, I definitely hear you. I mean, I've heard the saying, better ask for forgiveness than permission.
Absolutely.
And just move forward. So let's move to Emma on that point.
Yeah, I mean, I would mirror a lot of what Kate said. I guess to give another cheesy quote, the one thing that I hear from younger women in particular is, this isn't happening for me, or this isn't working for me, and I don't know what to do. And my first question is always, have you spoken to anybody about this, or have you put yourself out there? And there is that reluctance to do that, and I think that's partly a confidence thing. But as Sheryl Sandberg says, you need to have a seat at the table. You need to bring yourself into the conversation, and that's true of everybody. But I think, in my experience, when you're a junior woman, and not always if there's a lot of men more than women, but it's very difficult to put yourself out there. And I think when you're thinking about career progression, it's really important to try to step out of your comfort zone. And the more you do that, the easier it becomes. But I understand it's very difficult for some people, particularly where the focus is always on the work product. And that's a great thing. And if you're good at your job, that's amazing. But I think to get to the next level and to progress to more senior roles, you need to kind of build out in the round. You need to be building relationships. You need to be promoting yourself. Those are all really nearly as important as the work itself, to my mind. And that's what creates great leaders and great managers. I think it's, that's true for men and women. But I think, as I said, just to reiterate, the main issue, I think, is that there's a lot of internalizing for women in their careers. There's a lot of conversations going on in their heads that actually need to be conversations that are going on in the real world. If that makes sense.
That's good.
Oh, it does. I hear you, Emma. Thank you, Emma. Let's now go to the U.S. view on this, and we'll start with Anne.
Hi, thank you, Nick. So I think I echo a lot of what our group has already been saying, but I think one of the things that I'm always thinking about is that as much as we try to seek experience and skill sets, we really need to get uncomfortable. And the discomfort is where we grow, where we find opportunities, where we find challenges, where we find what we're good at, what works for us, what doesn't work for us, and what we're not as good at. So I think for me in particular, I think it's difficult when you think about that. I mean, fund finance wasn't a thing 15 years ago. There was no fund finance. There might have been subscription facilities, but there was no fund finance. And I think, again, people were uncomfortable going into something that was new or different. And here we are today with a huge industry and a very exciting opportunities that come up. So I think we need to sort of delve into the discomfort. I will say, this goes around with respect to both your career path, maybe taking on a challenge or an opportunity or a role that is discomforting to you and trying to grow into that challenge. I think that's, a very important thing. I think visibility is an important thing. Having a profile is an important thing. Certainly networking is important. I will say I myself used to go to conferences and hate walking up and speaking to somebody I didn't know. And, I didn't know anybody in the room. And then, eventually now I go to conferences and I know a good deal of people in the room, but, it's again, having to kind of wade into that discomfort. Obviously there's a lot of change around us right now. And, again, a lot of discomfort as to, what are we doing? When many of us have ways, it really changes our lives in ways, in our schedules, and makes us really rethink how do we manage our career. Again, there's a lot of discomfort with that as well, but many wonderful women manage it and have done quite well. I think one of the things that I would say at the end of that is when you're going into this discomfiture, you should not be afraid to ask for help. I think that that is one of the most important things that we forget, that we can't all do it ourselves. and that drawing on the experience of others is super important. Sometimes I've had tricky client situations. Sometimes I've had tricky, deals or situations that, rather than turning to somebody either in my own group or somebody that is familiar with the situation, I give a call to a colleague that is at another institution, or even one of my competitors, to ask them how do they deal with that challenge. I think that, again, being afraid to ask for help is something that we as women often do because we think that we should be able to handle everything ourselves and get everything done ourselves. And I would lead with I would lead with, when I speak to more junior women, I think that they really are struggling trying to figure it out. I think we all figured it out for ourselves and for what works for our lives and our families, but I think it is very important to have that camaraderie again and be able to realize that we can't just do it ourselves. So in any event, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Anne. I mean, one of the things you touched upon, I completely agree with. When I come across a particular issue or a problem that I can't solve or haven't experienced before, I ask myself, is this the first time some problem like this has come up, or has someone else already fixed this? And then I usually just go and ask them, find who might be that person, and kind of seek out and figure out. And usually getting the expert advice makes all the difference in the world. Mary, what's your view on this?
I couldn't agree more. I think it's really important, as Anne said, to sort of get out of your comfort zone, stretch, and reach out to other people in your network for advice and guidance. I think the particular piece of advice that I might give is to advocate for yourself. Think out loud. Other people aren't mind readers. And if you want something, if you want that promotion or that next particular assignment, speak up for yourself. You may think, for example, that you've done really great work, you worked long hours, produced really good results, and that in and of itself must mean that you're up for that promotion, that other people know what you want. And unfortunately, that's not really the case. You've got to tell people what you want. Dee Dee mentioned earlier that WFF had a fireside chat with Shelley Archambault, where she talked about her book, Unapologetically Ambitious. And she's really amazing. She is one of high-tech's first Black female CEOs, and she's currently a board member of Verizon and Nordstrom, among others. Shelley talked about a number of her strategies for success, and those strategies included planning, building your network, establishing your reputation, setting your goals, and telling people what you want. Her advice really resonated with me. She said, broadcast your intentions. You never know who is listening or who might have a connection. The more people who know what you want, the more likely you are to get an opportunity. And I can't stress that enough, that it's really important that you get out there and you speak up for yourself. And particularly in this time when we're not meeting in person, you've got to connect. You've got to pick up the phone and call people, participate on those calls, and let people know what you want.
Absolutely agree. Thank you, Mary. Let's now go to Asia, starting with Danielle Roman from Iran, giving a view on that, on this question.
Thanks, Nick. I mean, the first piece of advice that I give is don't just be ambitious, be really ambitious. And I'm going to share with you a little story. When I was a kid, I said to my dad, "Oh, I really want to be an actress. I want to go off to Hollywood. This is it. I want to get in the film industry." And he said, "You know, what, instead of being an actress, why don't you become a director? Because then you can direct and act in your own films." I said, yes, I'm going to become a director. And he says, "Why don't you become a producer? Because then you can produce, direct, and act in your own films." I was like, "You're right, I'll become a producer." And then he says, "Why don't you become a lawyer? Because then you can actually make enough money that you can fund to produce and direct and act in your own films." So I said, okay, I'll become a lawyer. And sure enough, I became a lawyer. Now, when I became a partner, I wanted to celebrate. And my dad turns to me and he says, "That's great, but why don't you become CEO of a Fortune 500 company?" I'm going, oh my gosh. I'm not sure if that's in my career ambition, but I think that women often feel constrained by the status quo. They're looking, well, there's no other woman that comes before me who has that role, or there's no role model that's there for me. And I think women need to kind of, as you all said, get out of their comfort zone and not be afraid. They sometimes I feel that women are afraid to fail. They're afraid that they're not good enough for the role. They're afraid of being rejected, or perhaps they're just afraid of being alone at the top, because if there are so few women, it can be quite a lonely place. But the only way that we're going to change things is to break through that barrier. And you're all talking on quotes, and here's one: the only thing to fear is fear itself, right? The other piece of advice that I'd like to give touches on what Shelley Archambault said, and this is having a plan and being a master of that plan. I find that a lot of the women that I speak to, they do have a plan, but the plan becomes ambiguous at some point in their career, whether it's whether they have a family or they're something's changing, and then they suddenly think, oh, actually, I don't know what my plan is, and they feel a bit lost, and they haven't created a new one. Or their plan is, what, if I just keep my head down, I'll work really hard, I'm going to get that promotion, because surely we're in a meritocracy, right? And this is not always the case. We have to take control of our own destiny. And as Mary was saying, constantly communicating, this is what I want. Am I on track? You need to make things happen. You cannot sit back and passively wait for someone else to show you the way, because this isn't necessarily the way that you progress. The other point I wanted to say is learn how to be politically savvy. Politics is a dirty word. I know that we're all obsessed with what's going on politically in the world now, and everyone's like, oh, I don't want to get involved in politics. But actually, politics is about relationships. Politics is about networking and understanding where to find allies and where to find advocates. And I think as women, you actually need to get involved in office politics in a positive way to understand how the system works and who might be able to help you there. My final piece of advice is get involved with organizations like Women in Fund Finance, because they are huge advocates. There's so much skills that you learn, so much networking involved. One of the things I love about Women in Fund Finance is that it is a truly global organization. Here in Asia, we are able to take advantage of the incredible speakers that you have out there, or events, or some of the forward thinking that you've had in the advancement of women. And I really think that having that global perspective is really going to help galvanize the progression of women here.
Thank you, Danielle. Fiona?
Danielle has said everything that we can about for Asia. She's ticked all of our boxes. I have nothing to add to that. The impassioned speech that she gave.
Shall we move on to the last topic? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we all would agree that exposure offers opportunity. And now we're in an unusual time, and you are all leaders. You are managing people, and you're managing your own careers. And I want to ask you, how are you doing that? Talk personally a little bit about how you're managing your career politically, internally, and what is the advice that you're giving your teams in an age of Zoom? So I used to tell every new hire that we actually gave an offer to and came on, the very first thing that you should do is on every deal you are on, add to your address book every attorney, junior, senior, anybody at a rating agencies, all the lawyers, everybody at the client you're dealing with, and make sure in some way or another that you might have a reason to just say hello. Remember me? We work together on such and such a deal, and it may be for an introduction, etc. Now we're challenged. Now we are all operating virtually. So how are you managing your career and advising your teams in the age of Zoom? And let's start with Mary.
All right. We've all heard a lot about the importance of networking and making connections. And Dee Dee, to your point about, putting those people in your address book, reaching out, establishing those connections. And in fund finance in particular, so much of this is relationship lending. We all know one another. We see one another on deal after deal. We go to these conferences where we meet one another in person and really deepen those relationships. So I can't stress enough the importance of making those connections, and join those industry groups, such as the Fund Finance Association or Women in Fund Finance. We also have a number of different initiatives, young professionals, diversity, mentorship. To the extent that those things interest you, get involved. If you're a more senior person, offer to be a mentor. If you're a more junior person, reach out for that mentor. I think there's just a lot of opportunities to meet people and establish those connections. And they're important to not only building your career, establishing your reputation, and expanding your network. And it just makes your day-to-day work a lot more fun. And I think these relationships take on even more importance during this pandemic when we're not able to see one another in person. But the fact that you've worked at establishing these relationships means that you can reach out, you can send that email, you can pick up the phone and reach out to these people in your network. So my advice in this age of Zoom and the pandemic is to get involved, to participate, be active, be present. When you're on these calls, turn on the camera, let people see you. Don't mute yourself, speak up, let people know that you're on the call. And it can be so tempting. We're all multitasking. We're doing a billion different things at once. It can be so tempting to look down and look at your emails, avoid that temptation, put the phone out of reach, and really be present and actively participate. So that would be my advice in the age of Zoom.
And
I think I'm gonna have to put the phone down then.
What would you add?
So just to sort of go along the lines that Mary started here, I think that you have to be intentional. I think that the fact that we're not in the office has really taken, and we're not seeing each other in person, has actually taken a lot of the more fun and random, spontaneous opportunities for us to chat with each other, check in with each other, see each other out of the picture. And so in some ways, I think when you are part of a team, it makes it more difficult because all of the kinds of fun social things about work have changed. And all the work aspects about work are still there. So I think that it is definitely, certainly with the age of Zoom and the age of COVID, it's really changed things for the better in some ways and for the worse in others. But I think it's really required us to be much more intentional about reaching out to one another. I think training with respect to, more junior colleagues of ours has become a little bit different as well because you can't have them in the room. So you can't hit mute and explain something to them when you're on a call with them. So I think there's had to be a lot of more formal opportunities for teams to interact. We've had to create some fun opportunities for us to interact as well. Either playing we play games every couple of weeks. We get on as a team and we play a computer game, believe it or not, through Zoom. So you have to do things in order to try to keep that social network there and make it less about work and more about relationships. I think that's the bigger challenge that we have right now with Zoom. Thankfully, we can all see each other. I completely agree with Mary. It makes such a difference to be able to be face-to-face, even if we're far away. So I think if you have the opportunity to get on a call and it's a dial-in opportunity versus a Zoom or WebEx opportunity, attend that WebEx, attend that call, through video, not just through, voice. It really helps establish connections. There are people that I've met, clients that I've met for the first time during the pandemic, that I'm working with, and establishing that relationship over the phone is always a difficult thing to do. You can certainly do that, but establishing it face to face and it is much more important and much more helpful and really gives you a sense of what they're thinking. I mean, body language is a good deal of how we communicate with each other, and we've lost that face-to-face interaction. So I think Zoom has been extremely important and helpful as well. I think the other thing that I would say is that I have actually been impressed by how many people have actually taken the initiative to make a career change during this time. I think that I'm actually quite surprised. I think that, you know, one would be much more nervous about that or you know, trepidatious, because you really can't be in a workplace with your other teammates and get to know them in the same way. So you're really getting to know people via phone and Zoom and, you know, WebEx. But I've been really impressed with that, and I've been really impressed with the fact that people are, you know, stepping into those challenges and you know, creating teams virtually. I think that's something that is going to probably continue into the future, where we may have team members that don't regularly attend or regularly present in an office or in a workplace. So I do think that the nature of work is changing in some ways for the better. I think in some ways, you know, creating challenges. But I think that for women in particular, the fact that we don't have to be tied to an office or a desk, you know, has been, you know, somewhat you know, shown to be possible, and you know, with respect to the way that we're managing workplace, and with respect to the fact that we may have family responsibilities or other responsibilities, particularly during COVID, when maybe not all the kids were attending school. So I think that's been a challenge. I think it's a challenge for people on my team who are male and female, who are managing young families. And I think that, again, the nature of work may change. We may get more flexibility through work and through you know, through our home life, and that's kind of exciting, I think, for everybody. It might well be a game changer going forward.
Danielle, can you give us an indication of what it's like for you in Asia?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I echo a lot of what was said. I think for women here, the biggest challenge with Zoom is staying visible. So, you know, making sure that you are turning that camera on and being present. I think beyond that, though, you also need to be demonstrating that, you know, you are doing things beyond just your day-to-day work. I mean, your managers and those, you know, who you are supervising, they can see all the emails that are being sent back and forth. But what you can't see is, you know, are you contributing to mentoring or training of junior staff? You know, have you been doing other things to maintain team culture that is just not visible to your superiors? And I think that it's really important for women to be flagging, hey, I am doing this beyond just what you see on Zoom or what you see on emails. It's important for career progression. I think with COVID, and then, you know, that this hitting us in Asia off the back of the protests in Hong Kong has meant we've really had to remind ourselves to be compassionate. We are in the people business, and a lot of people have gone through some very, very difficult things this year. And in many ways, this is an opportunity to bring us even closer together. For the first time, we are seeing each other's bedrooms. We are seeing lifestyle choices. We're seeing a private part of life that you never would see in ordinary circumstances. And this is a good chance to really get to know your team, to really understand each other and nurture that culture. Now, here in Hong Kong and Singapore, we are starting to go back into the office. All offices are taking a slightly different approach, but for the most part, they are showing some flexibility. So people tend to be in a couple days a week, and other times they're working from home. And this is probably where the future of a lot of the workplace is going to go here. The advice that I'm giving right now is the days that you are in the office, be present, genuinely be present in the office. Don't just go into your room, shut the door, and sit there and hide behind your computer, because you could do that at home. take the opportunity to catch up with someone at the coffee point, to call someone, say, hey, come for a coffee, because this is how you are really going to maintain that team spirit in the age of Zoom. And so I've kind of focused on the internal side of things and managing internal relationships. And Fiona's going to touch on more of the outward facing client side in the age of Zoom.
Yeah, and I know we're short on time, so just 2 points that I just wanted to raise in sort of the external client-facing stuff. I think my first tip would be creative with business development. I think when we're sitting behind our screens, I think it's very easy for us to say, oh, we can't really do any business development now, so we'll kind of put it off. But there are lots of things that you can do. I mean, we've done things like virtual drinks with clients, virtual quizzes. Just really. You doing something that's a little bit different, and it's amazing that everyone's sitting at home. They really like to engage with something that's out of the ordinary. So get your lateral thinking hat on, do something outside. Think outside the box. Doesn't need to be for long. It needs to be for half an hour, but you can really make a difference actually, and it can really brighten up somebody's day to do something that's out of the ordinary. And I think in the current time that's can only be seen as a positive thing. So I'd really encourage people to continue to do BD and to think outside the box. Also, I would, especially for women, think of this time as a real opportunity. I think many of us feel, especially, well, certainly I do, that business development is very much about going to the bar with the boys after work, and it can feel a little bit daunting, I think, for women to do that. That's not an option anymore. So the playing field is leveled a little bit in terms of the ability for women to take advantage of business development opportunities. And I think really Zoom also does that as well. It's sort of, if you're not a very confident public speaker, Zoom is a really great place to hide, because you can be in your bedroom doing this and doing a presentation, and it feels way less scary than if you're sitting and looking at 500 people to just sitting and looking at your computer screen. So take advantage of the fact that you've got that little bit of a comfort blanket between yourself and an audience to take the opportunities in this time to do more public speaking, to put yourself out there in maybe situations that you wouldn't be comfortable in if it was in person. But you can use this as really, really good practice. So when we get back to more normal situations, you've completely blown away any concerns about public speaking, and you've done it so many times now that you're really comfortable. It's an opportunity, I think, for us to take advantage of that. So those are my two things.
Thank you. So Emma, let's hear from Europe real quick. You're locked down again. So
yes, we are.
In and out. So tell us.
I mean, just two things, because I'm really conscious of the time. I think in my career, one of the most important things I've learned about, both as a manager and as somebody being managed, is that everybody has their own perspective on an issue. And I think in this time where we're all remote and everyone has different challenges, it's really important to remember both your clients and your teammates and everyone's approaching this from their own perspective. So what the issues that might be facing one person are very different to the issues that might be facing me. I have a family, I'm really busy, my partner works, there's a lot going on in my house at any given time, and we're just doing a massive juggling act. I have people in my team who live alone, who are feeling really isolated, they're really cut off. Their issues are very, very different to mine. And I think as a manager, it's really important to remember that, and remember when they're reacting or when you're reacting, you're coming from, you're potentially coming from very different places. And what I've said to my junior team, who I feel, we're locked down again. A couple of my team are stuck at home. They live alone. It's really, really hard. And I've said, you need to manage upwards. You need to be managing the people that are managing you, to make yourself a part of the situation. Obviously, the onus is on us as managers as well to make sure those people are okay, to connect with them, to check in with them. But, it's never been more important to take control of how you're being managed, and pick up the phone to someone, call them. I think without making mass generalizations, I think the younger generations, in my experience before this time, obviously much preferred communicating by email. I was always taught, pick up the phone to a client, pick up the phone to a colleague. And we as lawyers are always covering our back, so it's good to put stuff on email. But the younger members of the team, everything is on email. And one part of connecting with each other in this time is to speak to each other. I know it's not always practical to get on a Zoom call, but you can always pick up the phone to someone, and to be doing that regularly, to check in all the time. The other point I wanted to pick up on was, do we have an opportunity in this time of Zoom? I think we do. We recently had a return to work session about a month ago in Europe, and from a couple of people that were coming back from maternity leave, myself included. And where I think it's been an easier situation for us is, had I been on maternity leave for an earlier part of this year, I would really have felt like I'm out of the game, and I'm really stressed about that, and I'm concerned that I'm not visible. Whereas I was on leave, but I wasn't really on leave, so I'm able to maintain my career, maintain my contacts with people in the same way that everybody else is. So I think from that perspective, we really have leveled the playing field. And that's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to be working straight away when they've had a baby, but the fact that we have the opportunity to do so and to contribute more, I think has been really helpful. Kate and I were chatting earlier. I don't think I want to be in a world of Zoom forever. Like, I want to be able to be in the office connecting with people, because I think that's really, really important. But I think a balance going forward will be great for everybody, I think.
And maybe just to jump in on that, because I know we need to wrap up, but I think, those of us who've been advocating for a more intelligent approach to working from home for years could only have dreamed of a social experiment where the whole world had to work at home. And if ever we needed to prove the point that productivity does not drop when you work from home, we have proven that point. And I think just looking to the future, because everybody's talked very intelligently and thoughtfully about what we're dealing with now, one of the things as an industry we can think about is, how do we shape the future of home working as people begin to emerge, and take all these things we've learned and figure out how to build this better. Because I think for women particularly, it will make a massive difference if we can find a way to take all these lessons and build this properly going forwards, and create that flexibility that allows us to get out of here, but also to spend time working at home productively as well.
Nick, would you close us off?
Sure. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for their time. Incredibly good advice and a really captivating session over here. I certainly got a lot out of it myself. Also want to thank the 2,500 Women in Fund Finance members who put in all the energy and bring all the events together and have built this amazing network. And lastly, I'd like to thank our sponsors, without whom none of this would be possible. I'm going to go through them in alphabetical order. ABN AMRO, Allen & Overy, ANZ Bank, Appleby, Ashurst, Bank of America, Barclays, Cadwallader, Carrie Olsen, Commonwealth Bank of Australia, Chapman & Cutler, Clifford Chance, Comerica Bank, Cummings & Lockwood, Debevoise & Plimpton, First Republic Bank, Fried Frank Harris, Fund Finance Partners, Harneys, Haynes & Boone, ING Bank, Investec, Caton, Mitchin, Rosen, Kirkland & Elliott, Lawrence & Loof, Maples Group, Mayor Brown, Morrison Forrester, Morant, MUFG, Ogier, Paul Hastings, Proscar Rose, Reed Smith, Sidley Austin, Silicon Valley Bank, Simpson Thatcher and Bartlett, State Street, Validus, Walkers, and Wells Fargo Bank. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Jeff Johnston, the chairman of the Fund Finance Association. If you stayed with us for 5 days of online content, I commend you. But seriously, thanks everyone for joining. Thank you for all the hard work put in by the moderators, the sponsors, participants. This took a lot to pull together.